Go ahead and file the divorce papers. I don't need the kids, he said, striding out the door, leaving me alone with our 3-year-old twins and our newborn daughter. I had long suspected his infidelity, but the demands of parenting and work kept pushing those thoughts aside. I can't take this anymore, I whispered to myself. My twin daughters clung to my legs, their little faces etched with worry. "Mommy, we love you," they said, and in that moment, something inside me snapped into focus. Despite the anger swelling within me, clarity emerged. "Fine, let's do this," I replied, signing the divorce papers without hesitation. A bitter smile tugged at my lips. He has no idea what's coming for him. After everything I've done for him, he'll be the one regretting this choice. Thus began his descent into chaos, unbeknownst to him. "I'll be late again tonight." Those words had become a tired refrain. I'm Maya, 34 years old, married for 4 years. I spoiled him a bit, perhaps too much, being 2 years his senior. Our twin daughters arrived within the first year, and 3 years later, we welcomed our third daughter. It was around her birth that he began coming home late more often. He used to say, "I hope the next one's a boy. I want to play catch with him." His excitement faded when he learned we were having another girl. At the hospital, his expression soured when he first laid eyes on our newborn. "She doesn't look like me. She's not cute," he remarked. A wave of anger crashed over me. How could he say that about his own child? What kind of father speaks like that? I think that's when the thought of divorce first crossed my mind. Even after we returned home, his mood didn't shift. As my maternity leave came to an end, he offered little support with the kids. "Show some interest in them," I urged him. "If you're overwhelmed, hire a babysitter. You've got savings," he shot back. I had a solid job at a top company, earning more than most women my age. While he struggled to hold on to temporary positions, perhaps he resented my success. I worried about how long his current job would last and hoped he would at least step up as a father. But when I asked him to spend time with the kids, he complained, "It's too much work." Even when he did help, it was half-hearted, and the girls grew bored. His awareness of their lack of affection for him seemed to gnaw at him. This pattern continued until one day, he simply stopped helping altogether. "I'm tired from work. I need my weekends to rest." He would either retreat into his room or go out with friends. One weekend, I had to work, but he flatly refused to watch the kids. "I'm stuck. If you won't watch them, I have things to do," I said, exasperated. "Bye," he replied nonchalantly. I couldn't leave them unattended, so I often scrambled to find a last-minute babysitter. This was ripping our marriage apart and taking a toll on the kids. In desperation, I reached out to his parents, but their response left me feeling disheartened. A wife must endure, that's the key, and remember what I told you the other day. My own parents lived far away, making it difficult to lean on them for support. I felt isolated and lost. "Hey, make me some food." I walked in one evening to find my husband in pajamas, the house a wreck. The only bright spot was seeing my kids' faces light up with joy when they saw me, their boredom momentarily forgotten. "Where were you so late?" he asked, a hint of annoyance in his voice. "I had to stop by your parents' house for some errands." "Now, hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving," he said. "If you've been home all day, couldn't you have at least done the laundry or cleaned the bathroom?" I asked, frustrated. He smirked. "I've decided not to do anything for people who don't show proper gratitude." "What are you talking about? I cleaned the bathroom yesterday, and you didn't even thank me." "I'm sure I did," I replied, exasperated. "Not the kind of thank you I'm looking for. I mean $200 worth of gratitude." He held out his hand, as if expecting payment. Too drained to argue, I called him aside to talk in the bathroom, away from the kids. I do everything around here, working, house chores, taking care of the kids. Do you think I've ever received any gratitude from you? That's a wife's job, he said dismissively. And what's your job? I asked, struggling to keep calm. I work too, he said, his tone defensive. Yet he was barely earning $1,000 a month, contributing nothing to the home, and somehow had the nerve to ask for more. We argued for nearly an hour, tension thickening with every word. Mommy, I'm hungry. My daughter's voice suddenly cut through the tension, bringing me back to reality. My husband stormed off, and I turned to make dinner, ignoring his outburst. In that tense silence, I finally uncovered the truth. My husband was having an affair. I confided in a close colleague I'd known since college, who had also divorced due to her husband's infidelity. You should gather evidence immediately, she advised, sharing her tips. In hindsight, there had been signs. Just before our youngest was born, he came home smelling faintly sweet, a fragrance I didn't recognize. Did you put on perfume? I asked, trying to sound casual. He grew visibly uncomfortable, stammering. Other signs followed: late nights, emotional distance, lack of time with the kids, and an eroded intimacy. But it was one small detail that gave it all away. There's lip balm in your jacket pocket. Oh, it's mine. My lips get chapped. Chanel's pink lip balm? Maybe it's my mom's. The excuse sounded ridiculous, but I said nothing. As he rushed to the bathroom, I noticed something on his neck. What's that? There it was, a love bite, nestled in a spot his clothes normally covered. I almost confronted him, but I held back, deciding I needed real evidence first. Take your time in the bath, I said, pretending I hadn't noticed. The following evening, I got home late from work. My daughters were already asleep, and the house was quiet. In the dimly lit dining room, my husband stood, gripping a piece of paper tightly in his hand. I've had enough. Let's get a divorce. What? You're serious? A divorce, and you don't want the kids? He shoved the papers at me, then walked out without waiting for an answer. Mommy, the twins, woken by the sound of the door slamming, stood in the hallway, looking worried. It's okay. I'm sorry for waking you, I reassured them, though things were far from okay. He says he's had enough? That's my line. And he doesn't want the kids? How could he? Tears flowed as emotions crashed over me, though I barely noticed. Mommy, I love you, my daughter whispered, hugging me tightly. At that moment, I knew I couldn't keep living like this. I couldn't let my daughters carry this weight. If I had them by my side, I could find happiness again. I finally knew what I had to do. Fine, let's file the papers, I said with renewed determination, and my daughter smiled as if she understood. That night, we all slept peacefully for the first time in a long while. The next morning, I submitted the divorce papers and made an important call. Yes, go ahead. My husband's the one who's going to be in trouble, I said, and the person on the other end listened carefully, ready to act. I'd thought long and hard about this. If he betrayed me, I'd make sure the consequences came crashing down, even if it meant his world would fall apart. No regrets. 3 days later. Maya, where have you been? I walked into my home after work to find my husband and his parents waiting, their faces a mix of anger, shock, and confusion. My mother-in-law's expression was fierce, my father-in-law's pale, and my husband's clueless. Have you been waiting outside all day? That's quite unsettling. This isn't the time for sarcasm. What's going on? My mother-in-law shook a letter at me. It's all there if you read it, I replied evenly. Her face flushed, and her voice rose as she scanned the legal notice. I need to pick up the girls, so if you'll excuse me, I said, moving past them and into the house, but my in-laws followed me into the living room, demanding explanations. Why did you send this out of the blue? We don't understand, my father-in-law blustered. You'll understand when you finish reading the letter, I replied. Using a lawyer is cowardly, my mother-in-law said, quickly shifting the blame. Frustrated, I tried to explain myself, but it was pointless. At last, my husband, still looking lost, chimed in. Is this all because you're unhappy with the divorce? Is that why you filed a complaint? My in-laws whipped their heads toward him, clearly stunned. They'd had no idea about the divorce or everything I'd put up with over the years. We never heard about a divorce. Is that why this is happening? Our son is useless. But that's no reason to ruin everything like this. Hold on, what's going on here? My husband seemed as confused as ever, while my mother-in-law slammed her hand on the table in frustration. Why are you divorcing, Maya? She demanded. Oh, well, my husband stammered, but I didn't wait for his excuses. Because he completely abandoned his responsibilities as a husband and father. You're always saying, men are like that, aren't you? Well, would you forgive your husband if he cheated on you? What? She looked stricken. Clearly, she hadn't expected me to confront her son's infidelity. My husband opened his mouth to speak, but a sharp look from me silenced him. My father-in-law quickly tried to defend him. A man's affair is just a game. It's nothing serious. This conversation is pointless. Please leave, I said firmly. Any further communication will go through my lawyer. Why drag a lawyer into this now? My husband said, looking more puzzled than ever. You'll agree to the divorce, right? Not only do I agree, but I've already filed the papers. What? Then why? My husband sputtered, but before he could finish, my mother-in-law broke down in tears. How can you expect me to pay $39,500 all at once? What's with that amount? Who's getting paid? Finally, the moment I'd been waiting for arrived. I took a deep breath, ready to reveal my secret. 4 years ago, just after we got married, your mother asked to have a conversation with me. I was nervous but eager to bond with my new mother-in-law, so I agreed. But what she asked me left me completely blindsided. Can you lend me $40,000? I was taken aback. She didn't even hesitate to inquire about my annual income, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Unable to withstand the pressure, I blurted out my income, maybe over $165,000. Her eyes lit up instantly. As it turned out, my father-in-law had developed a gambling addiction, blowing through money and piling up debt. She pleaded, desperate for $40,000 to pay it off. And though hesitant, I couldn't refuse her. But I made one condition clear: you have to pay me back. With that, I loaned her the money. 4 years went by, and she managed to pay back only $2,600. Sometimes she'd return a small amount, only to borrow it right back. Realizing I'd likely never see the full amount, I hired a lawyer to demand the remaining $39,500. My husband's stunned expression almost made me laugh. I promised to repay it little by little. Why are you demanding it all at once? Because we're no longer family. I have no obligation to be considerate. That's when my mother-in-law snapped, turning on my husband. This is all your fault. If you hadn't had an affair, she wouldn't be pushing us like this. You should pay it back instead of me. Why me? We're retired. Our pensions can't cover that, he protested. Well, if you want to keep living under my roof, you'd better figure something out, she hissed. Of course, with my mother-in-law unable to pay the $39,500 and my husband unemployed, it wasn't going to happen. I'm moving in with Laura, so I won't be paying a thing. Is that your mistress? Tired of this absurd back and forth, I decided it was time to end it. Don't think it stops at $39,500. I'm also filing for $113,000 from you and your mistress as compensation, and don't forget child support. What? You can't demand that. It's only fair. It's the price for abandoning your children and sneaking around behind my back. Where's your proof that I cheated? Forgotten already? You just admitted you're moving in with Laura. I sighed and handed him the stack of evidence I'd gathered. Just looking at it made me sick. The photos, pulled from his own public social media, showed him kissing and cuddling his mistress. My lawyer had seen them too, and they left no room for excuses. Why? Why do you have these? I found your public profile online. How pathetic. You thought no one would ever find out. It was ironic. For someone so clueless about technology, he'd made it easy to collect evidence of his betrayal. My in-laws were left speechless, staring at him in stunned disbelief. All right, it's time for you to leave. I need to pick up the kids. At least don't go after Laura for compensation. What if she leaves me? He pleaded. I don't care. Realizing the situation was only getting worse, I kicked the three of them out. Open up! Help me! I didn't know about the debt. I could hear my husband yelling through the door for a while. I'll call the police. That finally prompted them to leave, dejected. A year has passed since then. After paying me the compensation, the mistress vanished from the picture. Now, my ex-husband, stuck living with his parents, is under constant pressure to cover the $39,500 debt. He ended up borrowing from a shady dealer to pay me back. I received my money quickly, but he's still on the hook for the $113,000 in compensation and $330 in monthly child support. He's working manual labor from dawn until dusk just to scrape by. The interest on his debt keeps piling up, and at this rate, he might never repay it in his lifetime, but that's no longer my concern. Mommy, hurry up, or we'll be late. Oops, my daughters are calling. Time to head to daycare. They're growing up so fast, and that alone brings me immense joy.